Additional aids and services are available to individuals with disabilities. To make such a request, please contact us by email by clicking the Help tab in the PD portal or at pdportal@tamu.edu, by phone including Relay Texas at 1-800-441-7323, or in writing to Train PD, PD Portal Support, 4477 TAMU, College Station, Texas 77843. Both a transcript and accessible document of the content presented in this webinar can be found as resources in the course description. Click on the blue links under Course Resources in the description. When a link is clicked, a new browser window will open.
My name is Julio Medina, and I'm going to be talking to you all today about building success and the curriculum that we developed at Region 6 in coordination with TWC for developing middle skill talent for the Texas construction industry. So I'm very excited to get this information out to y'all, and then we will go ahead and learn a little bit more about the curriculum and see how you can probably utilize it, or hopefully utilize it in your program. So we'll go ahead and get started. So I am Julio Medina. I am one of the PD specialists for the CPPDC at Region 6 in Huntsville. So let me tell you a little bit about myself. I originally from the Texas Panhandle. I now live in Amarillo. Prior to being in Amarillo, I was living in El Paso, Texas. Was there for about 10 years. Loved to do a lot of outdoor activities. If I wasn't hiking, I was out at a baseball game, or I recently started running 5Ks. This was something I never thought I was ever going to do. You would have asked me 5 years ago, I would have laughed at you. But now I really enjoy it. So it's something that keeps me busy. I'm very much a family person. So a picture of my family here. I am the oldest of four, and my parents are immigrants to the United States, both from Mexico, now both U.S. citizens. So I definitely saw the hard work and dedication that they did, just like a lot of our students did. And then I'm also a big foodie. If I'm not out doing hiking, running, or watching some type of sporting event, then I'm eating. So just a little bit about myself. Again, I'm one of the three specialists with the CPPDC, the Career Pathways Professional Development Center. My other colleagues are going to be Mike Sines. He's over out in El Paso. We also have Sebastian Ramos, who's down in Corpus. Our PD coordinator is Joan Jackson. And then our project manager is Trey Daniel. So we are the CPPDC at Region 6. So let's go ahead and talk about some construction facts, right? So the number right here, 585,694. Does anybody know what the significance of this number is, or can anybody take a guess of what the significance of this number is? So yeah, it's the number of jobs needed in the construction industry, but let's go ahead and find out what types of jobs are we looking at. Great. So this number is going to be the projected middle skills jobs in the construction industry for the year 2030. So we're looking at about 500,000 jobs that are going to be needed, or they're going to be available by 2030 in the construction industry. And these are not entry-level jobs, they're middle skills jobs. So let's talk a little bit about what a middle skills job means. Before we get to that, let's go over our objectives today. So today we're going to recognize the skills needed for success in the construction industry. We're going to examine the components of the curriculum, and we're going to talk about how you can modify and adapt your lessons to fit your students' needs and your program's needs. Can anybody tell me what a middle skills job is?
I would say a middle skills job is a job that requires more than just the basic core certification. We would have, I would see an advanced certification such as plumbing, pipe fitting, electrician, or something like that.
Absolutely, yes, ma'am. So you're right on track with that. So let's look at the definition for middle skills job. So it's those that require some education and training beyond a high school diploma, but less than a 4-year bachelor degree. So, and this is from the Texas Workforce Investment Council. So yes, it's a job where you require some sort of certification, but you don't need a 4-year degree. And so what we're looking at when we're looking at developing the construction curriculum, we really wanted to make our focus on those high school graduates who are looking to get into the workforce, but maybe need some basic skills development. And we really wanted to see how we can utilize the industry and what we talk to employers about in developing the curriculum. These are some of the jobs that are considered middle skills jobs. electricians, plumbers, pipe fitters, and steam fitters, electrical power line instructors and repairers, and then first line supervisors of construction trades and extraction workers. And then we're also looking at welders, cutters, soldiers, and brazers. And I want you to take a look at the salaries that are under each of these careers. So we're looking at median salaries in the 60,000 range and the 50,000 range. The highest one here is going to be first line supervisors of construction trades and extraction workers, and we're looking at 63,000 as a yearly salary. So, I mean, that's a pretty good salary, especially here in the state of Texas, really depending on where you live, but it's something that you can live off of. We know that in the workforce now, digital skills are required for most any job that you're looking for, even entry-level jobs. And remember, we're looking at middle skills jobs. So we know that they're going to be required. If they're required in an entry-level job, then we know they're going to be required in a middle skills job. So what we wanted to do is we wanted to make sure that we included some digital literacy skills in developing the curriculum. So we know that the construction industry has always been an industry where labor was the number one priority, really just having the employees doing manual labor, right? The workforce is evolving to where we have robots now that can assist us. We have AI that's able to assist us now too. So the construction industry is no exception to digital skills and advancements. We know that in today's construction industry, workers are increasingly relying on mobile devices to submit or review work orders. They also use it to communicate not only with their supervisors, but also with their clients, and also to access data to make real-time informed decisions. We're going to take a look at what the curriculum looks like. We'll talk a little bit about the process that we took to develop it and how we obtained our data in order to create the lessons from that. We're going to look at the construction curriculum that we developed with TWC. We obtained a grant from TWC. The focus was, again, to develop a curriculum to upskill those learners with a high school diploma to get them to a credential. So the curriculum not only addresses general digital literacy, but it also tailors to the unique demands and technologies specific to construction work, preparing our students for digital aspects of their future roles in the sector. We're looking at having our students learn the digital literacy skills needed to grow, but also including math skills and language arts skills. So a really quick, did you know? Did you know that AEL specializes in building skills within a specific context? So we like to see it as education that's functional. A lot of us know this as contextualization. When we were developing the curriculum, we really just wanted to make sure that we were developing it with relevant content. We wanted to make sure that it was crafted to meet the real-world demands of the construction sector. And so we're going to explore the development process of this curriculum. We're going to look at how we collaborated with industry experts and employers to ensure that our content was not only relevant, but also practical. We wanted to make sure that we prepared our learners for the technological advancements that they'll encounter on the job site. So we'll delve into how this curriculum came to life through a targeted collaborative effort. So the construction curriculum consists of 3 modules. The first module that we created was the digital literacy for the construction industry module. And then the second one was the mathematics for the construction industry module. And the third and final is the language arts for the construction industry. So we really wanted to make sure that we were developing lessons and content that was relevant to what the need in the industry is right now. So we're going to discuss how we integrated digital literacy within foundational subjects like language arts and mathematics. Again, all tailored for the construction industry, all contextualized. So you'll see how these components come together to provide a comprehensive and practical learning experience that directly addresses the needs of our students and their future employers in the construction sector. The curriculum consists of the 3 modules, and each module will have an instructor workbook and a student workbook. The instructor workbook is going to have everything that the student workbook has, but it's also going to include a key. And we'll look at some of the examples of what that looks like. The same thing goes for the language module and then also the mathematics module. It also includes a scope and sequence. So where did we start when we were developing the curriculum? We really wanted to make sure that we were addressing the needs of the industry. And the only way we really thought that we would be able to do that is to go talk to the people who are in the industry. So we really had to collaborate with employers and industry leaders and experts on what kind of content we should be developing. We consulted with construction industry subject matter experts. We also use curriculum. We consulted with curriculum development subject matter experts and adult education subject matter experts to ensure that we address current and relevant needs to close the middle skills gap. Again, so we wanted to make sure that we're closing that middle skills gap so that our students would be able to obtain that certification and then continue on their career pathway. We were also able to attain data through surveys completed by construction trade instructors and construction industry employers across the state. So we sent out surveys via email. We did surveys via phone call. We were able to obtain that data and then analyze it and see what the needs were. And we were able to find some patterns. So some of the employers that we worked with included companies like Merrick out of San Antonio. And this is a very large construction company. So we were very fortunate that they were willing to collaborate with us and kind of let us in on how their day-to-day operations look like, especially for those entry-level position employees who are looking to move up. They have that high school diploma, but they may lack some of the basic reading skills, math skills, even those digital literacy skills. So we wanted to know, what can we do to support the growth and development of your employee in this industry? We worked with Lee Lewis Construction out of Lubbock. They're another large statewide construction company, and these are all state construction companies. So we wanted to make sure that it was relevant to the state of Texas and what's going on here in our state. And then we also worked with Western Builders, who's a smaller construction company out of the Amarillo area. And we wanted to make sure that we included everybody, big companies, medium-sized companies, and large companies, because we wanted to, again, make sure we were addressing the actual need in the industry. So in the development process, we took our direction from employers. So we did our outreach to employers for content to emphasize. What kind of content are we going to emphasize? What are common work tasks that require the use of technology and software apps? We received industry feedback, again, through surveys and one-on-one consultations, and then requested, once we were able to take that data, we were able to determine that there was a big emphasis on teaching email, software apps like Word, Excel, Outlook, Docs, Sheets. These were the softwares that were most repeated in our data, and that employers were requesting we would develop lessons around these and how to utilize these tools. So not only did we receive employer feedback in the development process, but we also wanted to receive feedback from instructors and students who were going to be utilizing this curriculum. So we did start a pilot on the curriculum, and we wanted to ensure that we were addressing the needs of the students and the learners and the instructors. Once we developed the curriculum, we started a pilot and we received feedback. There was a couple of programs throughout the state that agreed to pilot the curriculum for us. And so once they went through the entire curriculum, then we went ahead and got with them and received that data, and were able to look at what changes needed to be made specifically for instruction. This was a live type of development process. And I think this really illustrated our commitment to a responsive and adaptive educational approach that ensured our curriculum remained aligned with both industry needs and learner feedback. While developing the curriculum, also, we wanted to make sure that we stayed true to Texas AEL. So we utilized the Texas AEL content standards while developing the lessons and the content in the curriculum. So again, the modules include digital literacy, ELA, and math. And then there's other little components like soft skills that we integrated into the curriculum also, because that was a need that came from our employers. Is we need to teach our employees and our students soft skills, those transferable skills that they can take with them, not only to utilize in the workforce, but also to utilize at home and maybe even later on down the road if they decided to go to higher education. When we were developing the curriculum, the digital literacy content standards were not available just yet. So we did use the framework from the Massachusetts AEL programs. We'll talk a little bit about that. But now that we have the digital literacy content standards for Texas, we went ahead and made sure that everything was relevant to what we're doing here in the state. So now the lessons are aligned with the digital literacy content standards for the state of Texas. We also utilize ONET and the online elements that are given in the ONET website. The ONET elements that we're looking at were active listening, attention to detail, cooperation, critical thinking, speaking, and then technology skills, operating system software. So again, when we're looking at the development, we wanted to make sure that we included everybody's input and what we're looking at as far as what are the needs and how can we support those needs. So again, we do have the Texas AL Digital Literacy Content Standards now, and we did go through and update our curriculum to align with those Texas content standards. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and look at some of the content in the construction curriculum that we developed. So in the beginning, I talked a little bit about making sure that we were utilizing educational that's functional. So what does that mean? We wanted to make sure it was industry relevant content. And that fell under the topics of digital foundational skills, math, reading, writing, and we came up with real world work scenarios that the employers told us this is what a typical day on the job site looks like. And this is some of the tasks that they will be doing that will require these skills: digital literacy, math, reading, and writing. So every lesson, we wanted to make sure that our learners had a takeaway. What skill are we going to leave with after completing the lesson or the module? So really, when we're going to look at these following lessons, and we'll take a closer look at how each lesson builds off of the previous lesson. The feedback we got from employers was that they wanted to have their employees be able to send professional and appropriate email. So that was the biggest request that we got from employers, that we write up a lesson that would assist and help their employees be able to utilize email and also be professional. Then we're going to look at a lesson on how to use Microsoft Word in depth. What I mean in depth is looking at different functions such as using paragraphs, using templates, looking at different types of fonts. And then we'll look at how to use spreadsheets with basic competencies. So this, again, we're going to be looking from the very bottom, and which is identifying things like cells, columns, what is a formula, what types of formulas do we usually use? And then we'll look at how to save those documents. Where are we going to save those documents? Will they be saved to a desktop? Will they be saved to a cloud? We're going to be also looking at, once we are able to save those files, then we're going to be looking at how we can attach those documents to an email. So again, all of our lessons are piggybacking off of each other. Let's look at this email activity. So this is going to be lesson 3 in the digital literacy module. I'll give you a little bit of context before we kind of talk about this one. The first 2 lessons are really fundamental digital literacy skills. So we started with the basics. We wanted to make sure that all of our students were on the same level. So really what the first lesson consisted of was identifying different types of technological devices. What's the difference between a laptop and an iPad? Are you able to identify a CPU versus the monitor? Do you know what a modem is? Can you identify a mouse and a keyboard? Are you able to identify the uses of each device, like the right click versus left click? Are you able to identify keyboard shortcuts? So again, we wanted to make sure that all of our students were on the same page, and we know that they have high school diplomas, but some of our students may have been out of high school for 10 years, 15 years. And technology, as we know, changes daily. It's always evolving. So we just wanted to make sure that everybody understood where we were going. And then the second lesson that we looked at previous to this email one is digital literacy safety. The focus on this lesson is how do you present yourself online when you are an employee of a company? So what is email safety? What is online safety? What's appropriate to post online? What's an appropriate email address? We looked at what do you not share in an email? Those types of things, really just making sure that we are building off the previous. So they're now able to identify technologies and their uses. And now that they're utilizing it, we want them to be able to be safe online, not giving any kind of information away or even obtaining a virus on their work computer. Then that compromises data and people's information. So then we went ahead and moved into the email lesson. Our learners are now able to identify devices. They're able to identify the reason that they're used. They're also able to identify safety and how to safely navigate the internet on those devices. And again, our biggest request from employers was email. So we wanted to start from the bottom. So if we look at the pictures, we're going to see that this is what the lessons look like. And this is actually going to be the student view. This is what the student book will look like. And our goal was we wanted to make this engaging. We wanted to make this look different than really anything that's out there. So it is very much colorful. There is a lot of relevant pictures in the construction industry. And then we also wanted to include some of those software pictures so that our students can kind of put 2 and 2 together. The way that we organized it is every lesson will start with a little paragraph that kind of tells you what the tool is used for and how they will be using it in the industry. They'd also list the objectives for that lesson. So the objectives for this lesson, we're going to be looking at explain what email is. They're going to identify common email products and apps. They'll identify the parts of an email. They'll understand safety tips for using email and compose an email using text formatting options, and then create an email signature. So again, we are building on the lessons that were previously completed. We wanted to make sure that we were just circling back and reinforcing all the skills that are needed in order to successfully understand how to work email. So next to that, it's a little covered up on activity 1 is parts of an email. So here we're having the students look at, can you identify what subject line is? Where is that located? Can you identify what CC is? What is the function of CC? What is an appropriate subject line? We're looking at an appropriate introduction, and where does that introduction go? Is it in the subject line area? Is it in the body of the paragraph? How long should the body of a paragraph be? And then also looking at a signature. So we know that one of the objectives is to create an email signature. So we want to make sure that they're able to identify where that goes first. And then also we know that they're going to attach documents at the end. So can you find the attach document button? So once you complete activity number 1, then you're going to go into activity number 2, which is really email safety. So this is really touching base on that second lesson that we talked about, which was being secure online. So here we'll look at safety tips for email. Some of them include, if you're using a work computer or a work device, only work should be done on that. We don't want to be doing any type of personal business on that, because at the end of the day, it's your employer's property. So if something were to happen, they have that computer and they have all of your information. Your passwords, right? Making sure that passwords are kept secure, especially if your employer has their own type of system. We want to make sure that nobody's accessing that data or those types of files that may be confidential. Also knowing about trusting your source. They talk a little bit about what's a reputable source. Here recently at my job, they've been sending spam emails to see if we're paying attention on if it's a reputable source or not. So one of them that actually I got caught doing was I got a fake email that my Instagram account had been compromised, and I started freaking out. My Instagram account isn't linked to my work email address. So again, it's being able to trust that source. So I did have to take a training. I am able now to identify those spam emails, those emails that are trying to take our information. Again, they'll talk about sensitive information. What is sensitive information? You're not going to be sending your social security number through email, right? You're not going to be sending types of private information like that, copies of your social security number, anything that's going to compromise the integrity of security. And then again, attachments bring viruses. So where do the viruses come from? Trusting your source. If you're not able to trust your source, should you be opening any type of attachment? So we'll go ahead and look at the third activity, and then each lesson is about 6 to 7 activities, and we're only going to be looking at these first 3 just because I want to make sure that we get through all the sections, and I'm excited for it to be out, available to the public. Once it's available, it's going to be free. It should be uploaded to the Career Pathways website or the PD portal, but we'll definitely let you all know once that is available for y'all. So activity 3 really is looking at composing an email. So the students have been able to identify the different parts of an email, right? The subject line, who is it going to go to? What does the introduction look like? An appropriate signature and an appropriate body. So once we're looking at composing the parts of an email, we're going to be looking at font. What's an appropriate font to send, right? We don't want to be sending the symbol fonts to our supervisor and say, good luck, right? Figure out what I'm trying to say. We want to make sure that we're looking at the font sizes. We don't want to send something that's font 8 so that we have to squint and try to make out what the sender is trying to say, right? So here we have the recommended font size, 12 or 10. Email length. I know when I receive an email I have to scroll more than 3 times, I'm probably not going to read it right away. I'm going to pin it and I'm going to come back to it later. Again, we included here that we want to make sure when we're writing an email that only necessary information is in there, not including any type of sensitive information, and then just making sure that we're short and to the point and professional.
There is a question that says, do these go along with the workbooks that were passed out at the Career Pathways Conference?
So yes, these are actually the workbooks that were passed out at the Career Pathways Conference. So you should have received 2 sets. One would be the instructor workbook and the other would be the student workbook. So if you're missing one of those, go ahead and reach out. I'll put my contact information at the end so you can reach out and we'll see if we can get the other packet to you. I know that when we were passing these out at the symposium, it was one printed copy or one hard copy per program. And then they were able to go ahead and make copies of that from those sets. So if your program didn't receive one, reach out to me and we'll go ahead and get you that packet. And then again, hopefully by July, maybe the beginning of July or the end of July, we'll have the digital version available for download, and then you all can print as many copies as needed for your program. So the last and really important thing on this composing an email activity is the last one, which is attachments. So we're going to look at how do you attach a document? Where do you go to find that document that you saved? Where did you save it? On your desktop, in a certain file, on the cloud? Once the students are comfortable with email, then we're able to kind of go ahead and move on to the next lesson. And each of these lessons will have an assessment at the end of the lesson so that you can determine whether the student is understanding the content. There's a lot of activities that they can do, and a lot of this can be utilized in many different ways. An example that I always like to bring up is out in El Paso, we had a program that utilized this digital literacy model for an intro to digital literacy ESL class. We know that we developed this to close the gap for middle skills, those individuals that have a high school diploma. But also when in developing the curriculum, we wanted to make sure that it was flexible enough to teach to different level learners, and then also utilize it in the way that you may need it in your programs. I know some programs have learners that are very advanced, so maybe you don't need to go from the foundations of what does a mouse do, what the function of the left click, right click. You're kind of able to pick where you start. Another thing I want to mention is that the modules don't have to be done in the order that I named them in. They can be done in any order that you feel would be relevant or best suited for your learners. That was our plan, is hopefully we can utilize this to develop different curriculums for different industries, healthcare, manufacturing, and really just identifying the needs of that industry and how can we develop content that's relevant, that's going to give us outcomes, because that's really what employers were looking for, is what outcome is my employee going to leave with after finishing this. So now that we've looked at email, we're going to go ahead and take a look at what the word processing activity looks like. So again, the objectives are going to be at the beginning. So the objectives for this one are going to be demonstrate an understanding of word processing technology, open, create, edit, save, and print documents, modify the page layout of a document, formats text, and insert objects such as pictures, links, and then manipulate documents using functions, use the spelling and grammar checks. So I know that's one of my favorites, especially when I'm writing something long and lengthy, and then attach a Word document to an email. So I did say that all of our lessons build off of the previous lessons, and we just wanted to make sure that we did that in order to assess that our students were understanding the content. We're looking for those outcomes. The employers are looking for those outcomes. So the first activity is going to start from the beginning. We're looking at what is Word versus Docs. So even in my job, when I first started, we were utilizing Google, and then halfway through, they switched over to Microsoft. So we wanted our students to be prepared for that. If there was a type of switch from one type of software to a different software, we wanted them to be able to go in there without a doubt, feel confident, and understand, hey, I know what the differences are. I know what I'm doing. So we do discuss what the differences are between Microsoft Word and Google Docs. The second activity is going to be identifying those different functions in Word. So where is the font selection located? Where's the font size? Can you identify what this bold symbol means, the italicized, underline? Do you know how to change the color of the font? You're looking at your bulleting, your paragraphing, formatting, those types of things. And then also inserting different types of objects. We talked about pictures, graphs, tables. Once our students are comfortable with that, then we go over to what are the keyboard functions? What are some of the shortcuts that are utilized most when utilizing Word? And the big ones, were Control Copy, Control Paste, Control Cut, Control Z, which is undo, and then Control P, which we know is print. I have a story that one of my coworkers would call me almost every day, and she says, how do you copy and paste? I'm like, Control C. She's like, well, I did that, but then I hit Control P and my printer starts printing. And I said, yes, because Control Paste would be Control V. She's like, well, that makes no sense. But I'm like, yeah, I get you, but that's what it is. So really making sure that our students understand the differences between these keyboard shortcuts and what their function is. And then I don't have it on here, but we'll kind of talk about it at the end. We'll look at the real work scenarios and how those lessons were developed and what that content looks like. At the end of this, the students are going to attach a Word document to an email. So in the previous lesson, they learned what email is, how to compose an email. And in this lesson, they're learning what Word is, how to utilize Word. And now we're going to upload that Word document to an email. We're going to attach it to an email. So again, building on those previous lessons, ensuring that our students are taking away those skills. So go ahead and move on to the next activity.
As you move on, I was just going to say, I think these skills are very important. And actually, my husband had to take some courses through his work on these skills because they're moving to more technology-driven reports and paperwork. So these are important to know.
Absolutely. You bring up a very good point, Dr. Escamilla. And I think a big reason that we're shifting towards these digital tools is because of a business is there to make money, right? So if we can save time and we can save steps and save money in printing or doing anything by hand like it used to be, that costs some stuff, right? That costs money. But if we're able to do a one-time investment and get software that we can utilize forever because we've already paid for it, then it's saving the business money, where we're looking at financial literacy and understanding how the impact our employees have on our business and what our employees can do to kind of reduce that cost. So this next one we're looking at is spreadsheets. We've looked at email, we've looked at Word. Now we're going to look at spreadsheets. We're going to start from the very basics. What would you use a spreadsheet for, right? What would be appropriate for a spreadsheet? We look at demonstrating an understanding of the terminology. They're going to open, create, save, and share workbooks and format cell contents, insert, resize, and delete rows and columns, and then sort and filter data. Finally, they're going to attach an Excel file to an email. So again, bringing it all back full circle from the email to attaching a spreadsheet file, being able to save it and then attaching it. So the activity that we're looking at here, activity 4, is creating a table. So this is where we start getting into those scenarios, those on-the-job work tasks that would probably come up on a regular day at the site. So here what they're going to be doing is they're going to be creating an inventory list. There's a couple activities in between activity 1 and activity 4 that talk about the different functions of the spreadsheets, of how to open, how to create, edit, and format cells. So now they're going to take those skills and put them to use. So here they're going to create an inventory list. And we also wanted to include different types of careers that are within the construction industries. We have carpentry supply inventory, we have plumbers, and then we have electricians. And this was really just to kind of give that representation and show construction isn't just limited to carpentry. It includes plumbing, and it also includes being an electrician, because we want to make sure that our students are on a career pathway to one of the careers in the construction industry that requires a credential. The final task on the spreadsheets is emailing an inventory list. So they'll create the inventory list. Now they're going to have to write an email and then make sure that it's professional, make sure that all the components are there, and then they're going to attach that inventory list and send it out to their supervisor, which would be the instruction. So we're building on the previous lessons, ensuring that our students are going to leave with those skills. This is also to talk about the difference between Excel and Google Sheets. Again, we wanted to make sure that our learners are prepared just in case they go, one employer uses Microsoft, and then they get a new job to a new employer, but they only utilize the Google Suite. So making sure that our students and the employees are prepared was one of our main focuses also. Let's go ahead and look at these scenarios that we developed. And again, these were developed based on that employer feedback. Some employers allowed us to interview their employees. Some employers allowed us to even go on the job site and kind of shadow what their employees did on a daily basis. We talked to supervisors, we talked to presidents, vice presidents of the companies, because everything really trickles down. So we wanted to say, hey, what is the need that you see for your company? Because every company is going to be different. And we wanted to take that data and analyze it and create something that could be used industry-wide. The first scenario that we're going to take a look at is inventory and cost increases. So we talked a little bit about that in the previous one, where we're looking at what is an employer wanting as far as their employees to understand how to save money. Okay, so here we're looking at oral and written conventions. So this is going to be from the English language module. In the English language module, they're going to be reading. It says, use the list of fixtures and supplies you made in activity 1. So they were asked to create a list, so an inventory list of fixtures and supplies, and then it says using a spreadsheet. So they were asked to create an inventory list using the spreadsheet. Here we have the standard plumbing fixtures that they're going to include. These are the items that they have to include in that spreadsheet. And that means making sure that there's a column for item, making sure there's a column for model number, SKU, quantity, and then where is it going to be stored. This is going to be building off of the skills that were learned in the spreadsheet lesson. And if you look at activity number 2, now they're going to write a sample email. So now it says, now compose a professional email to your supervisor to get the list of supplies approved. Attach the spreadsheet. A sample email and tips are provided on the next page. For this activity, you will send the email to your instructor who will act as the supervisor. Now we're touching base on the ELA portion, the reading and writing, but also including those skills that were learned at the beginning. Attaching the spreadsheet. Where did you save the spreadsheet? What's an appropriate subject line? What's an appropriate title and an appropriate body and signature? This is another lesson also from the English language module. For this one, a customer has asked you to send them an email with general information about each counter type. They're working on a project. I believe it's remodel of a home, and they're working on replacing the countertops. So they are to write a professional email to the customer with a summary of each type, including cost differences, and provide the recommendation based off of the research that they did in the first activity. So this is activity 2. Activity 1 introduces the different types of countertops and the pricing and the information that they'll need in order to create this draft. Now they're putting to use the English language portion, and then they're also utilizing the email skills that were taught and the word skills. Activity 3 is research. Using your square foot calculation plus the quotes from below from the vendor, calculate the price. After we kind of go through this, I'll see if I can pull up the math module, because the math module is crucial, especially in the construction industry. We know that if measurements are off by 1/4 of an inch, we got to start all over. And again, that goes back to cost. So it's going to cost the employer more money if the math is incorrect, because we have to get a whole new set of materials. So we wanted to make sure that we're not only focusing on the digital literacy, but we're also focusing on the math aspects of it, and then also on the English and reading portions of it. So for this one, they have the cost of material per square foot. So in the math module, they learn about area, they learn about fractions. How do you make a fraction into a decimal and vice versa? What does it look like to multiply fractions? How do you divide fractions? And we also start from the very beginning, just simple multiplication, simple addition and subtraction, and then also looking at conversions. So here, they're going to utilize a template in Word to create a change order request form. So now they're utilizing the skills that were taught in the Word lesson, but also they're going to be using math skills that were taught in the math content. I'm hoping I can get through this so we can go to showing you a little bit of what that looks like. These are just some photos of one of the pilot classes, and this is actually the El Paso program. This was from San Jacinto at EPISD, and this is the one that I mentioned was using the Intro to Digital Literacy ESL class. And so they were able to identify parts of an email. This is the lesson that they were doing, was identifying email. And one of the really cool things when we completed this lesson was we actually allowed the students to send an email from the computer. And one of the students actually received a phone call from her daughter and was like, "Mom, I think you just got hacked because I received an email from you." And she was like, "No, Mija, I was the one that sent that to you." So she was really shocked that her mom was actually able to send an email, but that was a sign for us we're on the right track, and these are going to be skills that are transferable. Here's my contact information. I'm going to leave it up for a couple minutes, and then I'm going to pull up the math module and the English module so I can just show you a little bit of I'm going to show you the table of contents so you all can kind of see what other content we wrote into it. And then I want to show you what the instructor version looks like. I know what we saw in the PowerPoint is really just the student version. So I want you all to take a look at what the instructor version looks like. So this is a digital literacy one. It's the first module. And here's the table of contents. So we started from basic computer skills, digital literacy overview, email, word processing, and then spreadsheets. Let me go ahead and pull up the math module. And again, we wanted to make sure that the curriculum was engaging. There's a lot of color. There's a lot of pictures that really are relatable to what's going on in the industry and how they may utilize some of these technological tools. So in the table of contents for the math module, we're looking at everyday math. So this is what I was talking about as far as addition, multi-digit addition and subtraction, multi-digit multiplication, vocabulary word clues. What does it mean if you're reading a word problem? What is the math that's behind that? The assessment and to check your understandings. I forgot to mention earlier that each activity does have an option for your higher level learners and then your beginning learners. So you're able to determine based off of your learners in your classroom which option you want to go to. And if you have a mixed type of classroom, then you're able to kind of utilize both of those options, really whatever works best for you. And then we also wanted to make sure that anybody could teach this curriculum. We wanted to ensure that you didn't have to be a professional in the construction industry to be able to teach this. One of the things that we also did in the pilot is I got up there and I picked a lesson and I was able to teach it. All of the instructional procedures are included in the workbook for the instructor, and I'll show you what that looks like. We're looking at fractions and decimals, and then we're also looking at measurement. So here's the key. The instructor workbook, if you have the red numbers or any red lettering, that's going to be the key, and that's how you know you have the instructor workbook. But at the bottom, it does tell you what the student view page is. So you know that the students will see this content on page 5. So here's the scenarios that are in the English language module. So we're looking at missing inventory, cost increases, employee attendance, employee conduct, and then job safety analysis. These were those scenarios that would be encountered daily on the job site.
All right. Thank you so much.
We hope you enjoyed this pre-recorded webinar. After you have passed the final test with a score of 80% or greater and have received your certificate of completion, please take a few moments to complete the course evaluation. Participant feedback helps Train PD at TCAL continue to provide high-quality professional development. To leave a course feedback, please go to the completed portion of your transcript. To do this, hover over the My Learning tab and select View Your Transcript. Click on the drop-down arrow next to the word Active and select Completed. Then, click Evaluate in the drop-down menu next to the course you just completed. Please note that your feedback is greatly appreciated.